Chapter 647. Shunwan was startled. Fu Xiaoyi's voice slowly spread to his ears. Let 5th Xinyang lady marry this prince's 4th older brother, Prince Zhou. Shunwan was surprised at first, but when he thought about it and understood, he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. What kind of person was Shen Miao? She was Shun Xian's daughter. The southern Xie and northern Shun. The Xie family was considered to have really declined, and the Shun family of Mingqi was the strongest. Whoever married Shen Miao, that person would have the military power of Mingqi. Shen Miao's identity was destined that she would not be able to marry the powerful dignitaries, and this would make the suspicious emperor, Wen Hui, even more fearful. It was best for Shen Miao to marry a commoner, but at the very least, she could not marry a military official. Most likely it was because of this that Shen Miao had not decided on a marriage even at her current age, because if she were to marry a commoner, Shen Xian would definitely feel that his daughter would be wronged. The dignitaries were like this, so the princes would not dare to have any ideas on Shen Miao. It was still better for the crown prince as he was the legitimate heir, but if any of the other princes were to marry Shen Miao, it would be a clear statement of their ambition to fight for the throne. This kind of heavy weight looked like a blessing, but in fact it was a disaster. At the moment in the fight for the throne, the one in the limelight was actually Prince Zhou's faction. Prince Zhou and Prince Jing's consort mother were favored, and they had some abilities. Seeing that the power was getting bigger and more followers, if Shen Miao was involved, then Prince Zhou would be pushed to the teeth of the wind and waves. Emperor Wen Hui would definitely be unhappy, and the rest of the princes would be jealous. One feared that Prince Zhou would be suppressed miserably. As for the Shun family, there was no need to talk about it. With such a big fanfare, one feared that once the Qin country and the great Liang people leave, the Shun family would die miserably. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, it was done to the point of perfection. Shunwan's heart suddenly felt timid towards Fu Xiaoyi. This person's mind was too deep and too ruthless, which was somewhat scary. Fu Xiaoyi did not seem to see Shun Wan's expression and smiled gently. This matter will be handed over to Shindarin. He did not say how to do it and did not say to what extent. Prince Zhou already had a Zhou Wangfei, so if Shen Miao were to marry over, she could only be a Sufei. Shenwan did not have any confidence in his heart, but it was not good to show it. He cupped his hands towards Fu Xiaoyi and said, "This official will do my best." Fu Xiaoyi's attitude was neither warm nor cold. If it was 2 years ago, Fu Xiaoyi's attitude toward Shun Wan would be better, but the present was different from the past. The Shen family was not as good as before, and Shun Wan's head was full of lawsuits, so Fu Xiaoyi naturally did not need to value him as much as before. After Shun Wan left the residence of Prince Ding, Pei Lang then walked out from behind the screen. Pei Lang walked to the seat below Fu Xiaoyi and looked at the teacup that Shen Wan left behind after drinking the tea. "Your Highness plans to use Shen Wan?" Fu Xiaoyi looked at Pei Lang. "What does gentleman think of Shen Wan?" Pei Lang shook his head. Although he has his ways of enduring, he is not ruthless enough. His family is in a mess. If he were to use him, he would inevitably cause trouble in the future. He can be used in small ways, but not in big ways. Fu Xiaoyi laughed and looked at Pei Lang with eyes full of appreciation. "Gentlemen and I have the same thoughts." Finishing, he sighed again. Ever since the Xie brothers died, it is not easy to pass some things to others to do. If the Xie brothers had been raised properly, they would have been useful children, but now they have been completely destroyed. Even though they are not important pawns, they still added trouble. Pei Lang frowned. "Your Highness does not intend to put Shen Wan in an important position?" Grass on the wall. Fu Xiaoyi's smile was somewhat superficial. In the past he was wavering, but now the situation forced him to seek refuge with me. I do not dare to use this kind of person with an uncertain mind. One only need him to do some small things. Pei Lang said again, "Let Shen Wan think of ways to matchmake the 4th prince and Shen Miao. Does your Highness think it is feasible?" Chapter 648. One do not know if it is feasible or not. It is just that since this matter is Shen Wan's only chance, he would definitely make it happen at all costs. The Shen family's skills are high, and Prince Zhou is the strongest. Now that it has reached a sufficient stage, if one does not take action, one fear that it would really be too late. Pei Lang no longer spoke, but he saw Fu Xiao. He suddenly said, "If I were to marry Shen Miao, what does teacher think?" Pei Lang's heart jumped fiercely, but his face still had a light and breezy look as he analyzed. One fear that it would not be good and would attract His Majesty's suspicions and also make the rest of the princes fearful. Fu Xiao nodded his head, and there was some regret in his expression. One could not tell what kind of tone it was in his words. It is a pity. Pei Lang did not understand what Fu Xiao was feeling pity about. In terms of feelings, Fu Xiao did not seem to have any other feelings for Shen Miao. If there was, he would not be so cold when Shen Miao chased him to the point that the entire Ding capital knew about it. If at that time Fu Xiao had any methods of shielding Shen Miao, then the rumors would not be so unscrupulous. What exactly was Fu Xiao feeling pity about? Pity that the Shun family's military power was not fated to be in his hands? Pei Lang did not know what the answer was. After Fu Xiao left, he also returned to his own room, and when he saw that there was no one else, he then started to write a letter. Tonight the residence of Prince Rui was somewhat austere. The servants all had a dignified expression and did not dare to breathe loudly. Today, when His Highness Prince Rui returned, his expression was very cold, and Gao Yang and Ji Yushu, who were beside him, also had a rare solemn expression. Tai Yi and Nanqi brought along a person dressed like a guard and entered the room with Prince Rui. Even the personal study was renovated to be very spacious, and with the addition of some magnificent furnishings, it did not look like a study, but had the feeling of a corner of a palace. There was a person sitting on the main seat and was playing with a thumb ring in his hands in boredom. He was wearing a dark purple embroidered robe, and the clothes slowly covered the spacious chair, as if a purple cloud was flowing down from the sky. The person who was kneeling on the ground was prostrating himself. He could only see the boots in front of him. It was a greenish-black deerskin boot with the neatest sewing. The fine and dense sewing did not move at all. The sewing seemed to have silver edges. It was just a boot, but it was enough to show the owner's arrogant and luxurious temperament. Xie Jingxing had one leg on the soft couch and was half leaning on the seat as he looked down at the person below. His eyebrows and eyes were unbelievably handsome. When he smiled, it was as if the entire Garden of Spring could not be blocked. However, when his face was cold, it made people shiver. Those beautiful peach blossom eyes seemed to have turned into an icy spring at the peak of a mountain in an instant. He opened his mouth faintly, and his voice was emotionless. "Tell me, who is your master?" The man gritted his teeth and said nothing. Gao Yang and Ji Yushu also frowned tightly. Xie Jingxing smiled lazily and said, "It is fine if you do not want to say. Throw him into the tower prison." He suddenly bent down and got closer to that guard and said softly, "Anyway, I know who it is." The guard's expression did not change. His body was riddled with scars. It was obvious that he had suffered a lot of torture before this. Xie Jingxing smiled slightly, but the smile did not reach his eyes. He said, "Take his token." Ji Yushu and Gao Yang were startled at the same time and could not help but look at that guard. The guard was startled for a moment before a trace of struggle flashed on his face. Just the word token. It was obvious that Xie Jingxing already knew his identity. Everyone knew that Prince Rui of the Great Liang was ruthless and unscrupulous in his actions, and the tower prison was an existence that made one tremble in fear. Even he would tremble in his heart. The guard steeled his heart and simply knelt down and kowtowed a few times to Xie Jingxing. "Your Highness, have mercy." Chapter 649. Xie Jingxing swept a glance at the other person and sneered. "The people that Imperial older brother sent are just like this." His tone had a deep sense of ridicule. One thought that their bones would be hard. Boring. Ji Yushu could not help but speak. "What does His Majesty want you to do to fifth Shin young lady?" This person was caught at the entrance of the Shin mansion. It was also fortunate that Xie Jingxing had sent his own people to keep a close watch on the Shin mansion to prevent any accidents from happening. This person's martial arts were extremely high, and he was also quite vigilant, so Xie Jingxing's people had to wait for a few days before catching him. Now that he thought about it, it was not strange. After all, he was a spy by Emperor Yong Li's side. If he did not even have this ability, then the great Liang imperial family would be in danger. That guard originally wanted to say something, but when he met Xie Jingxing's smiling, yet not smiling gaze, he could not help but feel a chill down his spine. One had to know that in the entire imperial family of the Liang dynasty, this lazy and handsome Prince Rui, who always had a casual smile on his face, was the one that should not be provoked. 2 years ago, when he returned to the Great Liang, there were many forces in the imperial court that were secretly playing with each other, but they were all settled by Xie Yuan. Those ministers that were against him were also uprooted, and not even their roots were left. His methods were ruthless and his schemes were deep, but the way he did things made it impossible for others to find fault with him. However, other than fighting in the court, he had also done a number of beautiful things, leaving those conservative old ministers speechless. This was the reason why people loved and hated him. Now under his sharp eyes that could see through everything, the guard did not dare to hide anymore and could only reveal everything. His Majesty knew about 5th Xinjiang Lady's matter and feared that your Highness was staying in Mingqi because of 5th Xinjiang Lady. So he sent this subordinate to investigate. This subordinate did not want this subordinate to harm 5th Xinjiang Lady. It was all to investigate. Gao Yang's and Ji Yushu's expressions were not good at the same time. Even though Emperor Yong Lu was in the Great Liang, it did not mean that there were no spies in Ming Qi's Ding capital. It was hard to say what would happen after discovering the relationship between Shun Miao and Xie Jingxing. But with Emperor Yong Li's personality, he would never allow anything outside of his plan to happen. Shun Miao was, after all, a Ming Qi's person, and this identity would bring about many variables. From Ji Yushu and Gao Yang's point of view, it was not certain that Emperor Yonglu would agree with Xie Jingxing's thoughts. However, the most troublesome thing was that these two brothers were equally stubborn. Once they decided on something, they would never change their minds. If Emperor Yonglu were to obstruct him, how would Xie Jingxing obediently give in? In addition, as compared to Emperor Yonglu, Xie Jingxing had experienced quite a number of assassinations in Mingqi, and his temperament was even more unruly. If both brothers were to really fight, one feared that there would be a reign of terror and the sky would turn dark. Sure enough, when Xie Jingxing heard this, he laughed and said, "Oh, since it is only to investigate, then there is no need to lock you in the tower prison. I will send you back to the Great Liang." The guard was slightly startled, and before he could speak, Xie Jingxing's voice was heard from above. "You know what to say?" The guard hesitated for a moment. Prince Rui and Emperor Yonglu were equally terrifying existences, and his heart was in despair as he probed. "Does your Highness and 5th Xinjiang Lady have any relation?" Xie Jingxing looked at him with interest, and his beautiful eyes seemed to have some deep meaning. He slowly said, "How can imperial older brothers people lie?" Gao Yang gripped the fan in his hands tightly, and Ji Yushu swallowed his saliva. "Go back and tell imperial older brother that he is right." This prince stayed behind because of Shun Miao. The youth's lips hooked up into a gentle smile, but his brows were unyielding as he lightly said, "Do not have delusions of changing anything, because this prince does not allow it. All right, remember to remind imperial older brother." He yawned. "Do not forget the agreement with this prince." The tranquil night covered up everything. It covered up the undercurrents in the residence of Prince Rui, covered up the schemes in Prince Ding's residence, and also covered up the whispers in the general residence. Qiu Shui Yuan had already been taken over by someone, and the original mistress returned to her maiden family in a fit of anger, and even fought a lawsuit with her husband's family. With this kind of incompatible fire and water, everyone knew that Shinrochio would not be able to have her former glory. And this new Yin Yang had gentle and magnanimous brows, and even had a child in her tummy. In the future, one feared that she would ascend to heaven. There were not a few servants who stepped on the low and flattered the high, so they immediately turned around to flatter this new master. Chang Ziqing sat in the room and touched her tummy with a gentle smile hanging on her face. The western courtyard was after all too far away and was somewhat deserted. Old Shinforan found someone to calculate and found out that the child in Chang Ziqing's tummy was a son. She immediately provided for Chang Ziqing, and Shun Wan even brought Chang Zai-Ching to Shui Yuan so that it would be convenient to take care of her. Chang Zai-Ching was already the new female mistress of Shui Yuan, and she was also very satisfied with the current situation. Even though Chen Rochio's skills were deep, she was after all old and did not give birth to a son, thus she was at a disadvantage in this battle. Xinhuan entered the room and put down the tonic in his hands before walking over to Chang Zai-Ching's side and touched her tummy before smiling. Very good. Chang Zai-Ching responded with a smile, but was suddenly startled before saying softly, "Is there something troubling, masters?" Xinhuan was startled for a moment before smiling bitterly. "There is really a troublesome matter." Chapter 650. There is indeed something troubling me, Xinhuan answered with a bitter smile. Chang Zai-Ching patted Xinhuan's hands and smiled. "If master has any troubles, there is no harm in telling me about it. Perhaps I might be able to help." Xinhuan looked at Chang Zai-Ching's stomach. Even though he could not see anything at the moment, he still said, "Never mind. It is the proper matter for you to recuperate your body in the residence. There's no need to pay attention to these complicated and trifling matters. Moreover, they're all matters of the imperial court." Chang Zai-Ching was not discouraged and smiled. "Originally, before entering the door, Master treated me as a confidant and would always tell me about troubles. Whether it was the trifling matters of the inner court or the affairs of the court, they had never been as distant as they were now. Why are you not as good as you used to be now that you've entered the sect?" She shook her head and said, "I don't only know how to sew clothes and pick flowers in the backyard. Although I'm not the smartest, it's much easier for two people to think of a way than one person. Why don't you tell me about it?" Her gentle words struck a chord in Shun Wan's heart. Chang Zhao-Ching was different from Chun Rochio. Chun Rochio was a real, pampered wife, and even though she was gentle and graceful in the past, she would never intervene in Shun Wan's career. When Shin Wan's career was at its peak, it was good to have such a lovely wife who abided by her duties. But if there were any problems, Chun Rochio would not be able to help at all in the officialdom. Chang Zai-Ching was different. Before Shin Wan had revealed his thoughts to Chang Zai-Ching, he called Chang Zai-Ching as a friend. The two of them talked about everything under the sky. Chang Zai-Ching's knowledge was not short and could occasionally point out the matters of the court. Thus Shin Wan appreciated her a lot. At this moment, hearing Chang Zai-Ching say that, Shin Wan's heart suddenly moved slightly. Chang Zai-Ching not only had her own views on the matters of the court, the most important thing was that Chang Zai-Ching was a female. There were too many twists and turns in how to let Shin Miao marry Prince Zhou. If it was 2 years ago when Shin Miao's temperament had not changed, it would naturally be very easy. As long as he said a few words in front of Shin Miao, he would be able to incite her, but now it was not possible. Moreover, the relationship with the first household was tense, so it was impossible to start from Shun Xian's side. For this kind of marriage, perhaps one would only be able to obtain some gains by asking Chang Zai-Ching. Thinking of this, Xinhuan looked at Chang Zai-Ching and asked probingly, "If one say that I want Fifth Lady to marry His Highness Prince of Zhou, what do you think should be done?" "His Highness Prince Zhou?" Chang Zai-Ching was surprised for a moment before asking curiously, "Why let Fifth Young Lady marry to Prince Zhou?" Xinhuan chuckled. "I just said that casually," even though he had already treated Chang Zhao-Ching as his woman. But since he was working for Prince Ding, his mouth must be tight. Thus he did not dare to casually reveal this confidential matter. Even if he did not say it, Chang Zai-Ching was a smart person and quickly understood. She did not linger on the matter and said, "Fifth Shin Young Lady is General Shun's beloved daughter and one that he pampers in his palms. Now that His Highness Prince of Zhou already has a Wang Fei, if Fifth Shin Young Lady were to marry over, at most she would be a Su Fei. General Shun and Shun Foreign would definitely not agree to it." Shin Wan furrowed his brows and nodded. His expression showed that he was in a dilemma. When Chang Zai-Ching saw it, her heart moved slightly. If Shin Miao married to Prince Zhou, no matter what, it would not be a good thing for Shin Miao to be a Su Fei. Even though Chang Zai-Ching did not understand what Shun Wan's intention was, she was certain that once this matter was successful, Shin Miao would not have a good ending. Thinking of that delicate and pretty young female's pair of clear eyes that seemed to be able to see through one's heart, Chang Ziqing's heart felt somewhat uneasy. One did not know why, but Chang Ziqing had an instinctive fear and uneasiness towards Shen Miao, as if Shen Miao's existence would cause her some unpredictable consequences. Chang Ziqing was also a person who sought stability. Thus, if Shen Miao could be settled, it might not be a bad thing for her. Chapter 651. Especially, she looked at her lower abdomen. Now that there was a child in her abdomen, the position of the matriarch of the third household of the Shun family was set in stone. Not only must it be set in stone, it must be done well. Thus, any person or thing that could be a threat should be removed. But it is not that there is no way at all. Chang Ziqing smiled sweetly. Shen Wan's eyes brightened as he asked, "What methods do you have?" "That would depend on what kind of attitude Master wants Prince Zhou to have." Chang Ziqing asked, "Does Prince Zhou want to marry or not?" Shen Wan's heart moved. Prince Zhou would definitely not be willing to have this marriage, as the Prince of Mingqi was not a fool. If he were to marry Shen Miao now, it would undoubtedly be setting up a target for himself. Prince Zhou was not willing to have a relationship with Shen Miao, but Fu Xiuyi's aim was to make it seem that Prince Zhou wanted to have this marriage with Shen Miao. He said Prince Zhou would definitely not be willing, but one must let others think that Prince Zhou is willing. Chang Ziqing thought about it and said, "This is somewhat difficult. But females have always cherished their reputation, and if one's reputation was ruined, one would not have anything to rely on for the rest of one's life. I think that if Master wants to be the matchmaker, there is no harm in starting from fifth young lady." Shen Wan saw Chang Ziqing's confident look and asked, "There is no harm in speaking. Shen Foreign and General Shen are not willing for fifth young lady to be a side consort. In this world, there is no worst and only worse. If there is a worse ending than fifth young lady being a side consort, General Shen and Shen Foreign would definitely take a step back and choose to let fifth young lady marry Prince Zhou." Shen Wan's heart moved. He heard Chang Ziqing continuing to speak. As for something worse than being a side consort, there are many. For example, being kidnapped by bandits, being tainted by hooligans, or not knowing who the adulterer is. Under this kind of suppression, one would suddenly get a piece of news. That person might be Prince Zhou. No matter if it is Prince Zhou or not, General Shen and Shen Foreign would choose Prince Zhou because this is the best one and also the one that can protect fifth Shen young lady. Chang Ziqing did not say it very clearly, but smart people would only say 70 to 80%. In a blink of an eye, Shen Wan understood 70 to 80% and felt that everything was clear in front. Chang Ziqing smiled as she touched her lower abdomen and smiled gently. "It is just that these are all sinister methods. If one did not see Master frowning, I would not have said these words." Shen Wan had obtained this wonderful plan. So how would he feel that Chang Ziqing's method was sinister? At the moment he felt that he had picked up a treasure. Chang Ziqing was able to get a son in one stroke and was smart enough to solve his current problem. He immediately kissed Chang Ziqing's cheek and said with a smile, "With such a beauty, how would I dare to frown?" After saying that, he stood up again, as if he couldn't wait to do something, and said, "I still have some matters to attend to. I'll come see you later." Chang Ziqing naturally complied gently. After Shen Wan left, Zhao Mama, who was by Chang Ziqing's side, walked over and said with some worry, "Third Master is going to deal with fifth Shen young lady?" "Perhaps." Chang Ziqing smiled. "It is not the first time that the first and third household of the Shen family are at odds." "Miss, are you planning to help third master deal with fifth miss?" Zhao Mama asked. "There is still General Shen above fifth young lady. Will anything happen to miss doing this?" "This matter was not done by me, so how can it be counted on me?" Chang Ziqing's smile did not change. As long as Shen Wan is not a fool, he would not be easily caught by others. Moreover, if something really happened, the Shen family would be busy dealing with Shen Miao's rumors. So how would they have the mind to care about other things? Zhao Mama was still not assured. Why would young lady help third master deal with fifth young lady? Chapter 652. To come up with strategies for one's husband is what a proper matriarch should do. One must let him feel that I am different from Chen Roqiu. Let him feel that I am able to do the things that Shinrochio is able to do, and that I am able to do the things that Shinrochio is unable to do. Then he would not be able to leave me. Song Zaiqing caressed her lower abdomen and narrowed her eyes. Moreover, I have a premonition that if one does not remove Shin Miao, one fear that it would bring about a big disaster. When Zhao Mama heard this, she jumped in shock and did not say anything more. Song Zaiqing changed the topic of conversation. Speaking of which, is there any news from the Lu province? Zhao Mama said, the people that were sent are on the way, and no matter how fast they travel, they would still need a few days, so they should be back in a few days. Let them arrange things properly. A trace of coldness flashed in Song Zaiqing's eyes. My past cannot be known to anyone. Shen Miao received a letter from Pei Lang that night. In the letter, it said that Fu Xiu actually let Shun Wan think of ways to let her marry Prince Zhou. Jing Zhe and Gu Yu saw that Shun Miao's expression was not good and thought that something happened, so they asked, did young lady encounter something bad? Shin Miao shook her head, but her heart was secretly vigilant. In the past and present lifetime, Fu Xiu had the same calculations. No matter if she could marry Prince Zhou or not, as long as she was involved with Prince Zhou, the Shin family and Prince Zhou would not have a good time. The Shin family had angered Emperor Wenhui and made Emperor Wenhui feel that the Shun family supported Prince Zhou and wanted to secretly take a side in the fight for the heir apparent. As for Prince Zhou, he was the target of public criticism. Without using a single soldier, he was able to remove two potential dangers for Fu Xiu. Fu Xiu really had a good calculation. As for her rather capable third Shu, he wanted to tie her and Prince Zhou together. Needless to say, he would definitely use some methods that could not be seen in public. As Shin Miao thought about it, she could not help but sneer in her heart. No matter how long it was, the third household of the Shun family could use the first household's people without any scruples. If it was possible to use the entire first household as a stepping stone for glory and wealth. Such intentions were to be put to death. She said, let Mo Qing come in. Jingzhe went outside to call Mo Qing over. Shun Miao asked Mo Qing, have you found the person that I asked you to investigate in the Lu province? Mo Qing cupped his hands and said, replying to young lady, the Lu province's people had already replied and seemed to have found the person. However, there is another group of people who are also trying to find out the whereabouts of the father and son. I heard that they have issued a Jianghu order, regardless of whether they are dead or alive. Shin Miao suddenly laughed out, but no matter how one looked at that smile, there was some coldness in it. Chang Zaiqing is really ruthless. Regardless of life or death, the people that Shin Miao asked Mo Qing to find were Chang Zaiqing's husband and son, and now other than Chang Zaiqing, who else would be chasing after that pair of father and son? Now that Song Zaiqing had clung onto Shun Gue, she even wanted to kill her own husband and son to prevent future troubles. It was no wonder that she could walk so far in the previous lifetime. Just this kind of ruthlessness was something that many people could not compare to. Send someone to inform the people in the Lu province to protect them father and son and bring them back to the Ding capital as soon as possible. Shin Miao said. Mo Qing nodded his head. Shin Miao suddenly thought of something and said, wait. She said, help me bring a letter to Manager Ji of Feng Xian Pawn Shop. The lawsuit between the Shun and Qin family was really long and lingering. Many people thought that the case had been settled for a long time, but upon asking, it was not over yet. Almost 2 whole months had passed before this case came to an end. Chen Roqiu was indeed jealous of having no son, and in addition to old Shin Foren saying that Chen Roqiu did not treat her with respect, at the end Shin once still gave Chen Roqiu a divorce letter. This marriage that was initially praised by everyone as a talented man and beautiful woman, a celestial couple that others envied, actually ended in such a farce. And the most ruthless thing about Shun Wan was that after divorcing Chan Roqiu, he quickly promoted Chang Zaiqing as a noble concubine. Chapter 653. But even so, this lawsuit was a lose-lose situation for both parties. Shin Wan's career was hindered, and the residents also spent a lot of money. It was just that in comparison, the Chun family was obviously more miserable. The Chun family had some reputation, but because they were a scholarly family, they did not have much money. Old Master Chun initially fought this lawsuit because he did not want others to look down on the Chun family, but he did not expect that this lawsuit would go on for so long. After fighting for a full 2 months, it was not an exaggeration to say that the Chun family was bankrupt. Because of this, Old Master Chun's vitality was greatly damaged and blamed everything on Chun Rochio. Chun Rochio's mother also had some complaints. Chun Rochio was originally hurt by Xinhuan and hated that Xinhuan did not care about old feelings and was also angry that Chang Ziqing was two-faced. The saddest thing was that there was still no news of Xinyu, and now that she was despised by her own parents, she felt that all her hopes were in tatters and was almost at the end of despair. What she did not know was that the daughter that she could not find was currently in the residence of the Qin Prince in Yanqing Lane. In the residence of the Qin Prince, Xinyu was dressing up in front of a mirror. The clothes that she wore were the best quality. Even though the Shun family was a wealthy official family, it could not be compared to the fabrics in the Qin country's imperial palace. The jewelry that she wore was also very luxurious. She was covered in silk and looked like a different person from the past. If one were to say that the Xinyu in the past followed Qin Rochio's instructions and dressed up elegantly and was not bothered by the vulgar gold and silver, now her appearance looked much more expensive. Naturally, it was because Xinyu had become Huangfu Hao's concubine. The maid by her side carefully served hot tea to Xinyu, but Xinyu's expression was somewhat impatient. She had a pretty face, and under Chun Rochio's daily nurturing, she could be said to be gentle and understanding. Moreover, she could see that Huangfu Hao had some interest in Xinyu, so she picked out topics related to Xinyu. One day, Huangfu Hao frivolously asked her if she was willing to be his concubine. Xinyu thought for a night and agreed the next day. She did not have any other way out. The news spread like wildfire. The lawsuit between the Shen family and the Chen family had almost become a joke. Song Ziqing was pregnant, and if she gave birth to a son, one feared that this daughter would be thrown to the back of the Shun family's head. Even if it was not a son, because Chun Rochio caused Xinhuan to be pointed at, Xinhuan and old Xinforan would hate her. Her name had already been occupied by Xin Dongling, and these days there were rumors that the Minister of Lands Wang Bai doted on his lovely wife, Xinyu. The more it was said, the more Xinyu's heart was filled with regret and unwillingness. No matter if she really liked Wang Bai or not, as long as she thought that the comfortable life that Xin Dongling was living now should have been hers, Xinyu's heart was extremely unreconciled. She hated Xinhuan for being heartless and also hated Qin Rochio for not living up to expectations. And now she understood that based on her current self, it was even more impossible to get close to Fu Xiaoyi. If she were to return to the Shun family, Xinhuan might be angry with Qin Rochio and arrange a shoddy marriage for her. Xinyu also had the unique coldness of the Shun family in her bones. Xinhuan and her had been father and daughter for so many years, and at the beginning they were happy and affectionate, but now, Xinyu's gaze toward Xinhuan was even more vigilant than outsiders. Xinyu thought that rather than being married to an unknown family, it was better to be Huangfu Hao's concubine. Huangfu Hao was handsome and young, and was also the crown prince of the Qin country. If in the future she was favored by Huangfu Hao, perhaps she could be promoted. The most important thing was that if she could borrow Huangfu Hao's power, perhaps she could protect herself and Qin Rochio. Thus Xinyu became Huangfu Hao's concubine. Chapter 654. In all fairness, Huangfu Hao treated Xinyu well, and naturally Xinyu deliberately fawned on him. But currently in Mingqi, Xinyu was the most favored one among all the concubines that Huangfu Hao brought. Perhaps Huangfu Hao also enjoyed the taste of a daughter of an official being his concubine and was very greedy for novelty. Xinyu asked the servant beside her, "Has the letter for the Qin family been delivered?" The servant said, "It is already on the way and should be arriving soon." Xinyu unhappily drank a mouthful of tea. Chun Rochio received a letter. She did not know who sent this letter to her room. The Qin family's master and foreign did not want to see Qin Rochio, as Qin Rochio had hurt the Qin family's strength and the public money had decreased by a lot. Older brother and sister-in-law saw her as a troublemaker. Thus Chinrochio's days were not good, and she simply stayed in the room all day and did not go out. She looked around, but didn't see anyone. Curious, she opened the envelope and a letter fell out. As soon as she opened the letter, she was stunned at first sight. The handwriting on the letter was very clear to Chinrochio, as it was Xunyu's handwriting. Xunyu's calligraphy was the only copy of the calligraphy master Wang Foreign that Chinrochio had specially found for her. Xunyu's strength was soft, and she was able to learn most of Wang Foreign's handwriting, but she did not have enough strength, so Chinrochio could tell with one glance that it was Xunyu's handwriting. She quickly sized up the surroundings, and when she saw that there was no one else in the room, she then boldly opened it. The top only said to meet her at a somewhat isolated inn in the eastern part of the city, and there was no signature, but Chinrochio understood in her heart that it was Xunyu who secretly arranged to meet her. The stone in Chinrochio's heart was put down. Xunyu could still write a letter to her, and looking at the unhurried handwriting, it was obvious that she was still safe. The original worries were swept away, and Chinrochio slowly calmed down. These days the blows came one after another, and it made her somewhat flustered and unable to socialize and felt that life was hopeless. But Xunyu's letter seemed to light up her hope. With a daughter, Chinrochio's heart was suddenly filled with fighting spirit. At least she was not alone, so why could a person like Chang Ziqing enter the room and snatch what belonged to her? Chang Zhaoqing wanted to give birth to a son for Xinhuan. She wanted to see if Chang Ziqing had this ability. With a backbone, Chinrochio gradually calmed down. In the following day, the servants around discovered that the haggard and irritable Chang Zhaoqing seemed to be in a better mood, as if she had returned to the gentle and graceful third Xinforan of the past. Even when the servants collided with her, Chinrochio only laughed it off. If an astute person were to look, they would discover that in Chinrochio's eyes, there seemed to be a renewed fighting spirit that could not be extinguished. Early in the morning the next day, Chinrochio went out. No one from the Qin family stopped her. Madame Qin was a little worried, but she didn't say anything after old Master Qin glared at her. Chinrochio's older brother and sister-in-law were even more dismissive. If it was in the past, Chinrochio would quarrel with a few sister-in-law, but today she was not in the mood. She was wearing an unassuming brown short skirt. The skirt was of an old style from a few years ago, worn by Madame Chun when she was young. When she came out from the Qin residence, she was not able to get a single cent of silver, and because she was in a fit of pique, she only took the jewelry and did not even bring much clothes out. Afterwards, she was busy with the lawsuit and did not have the time to buy it. At the moment, the Qin family could not even afford to buy it. Wearing unfitting and outdated clothes, Chinrochio could only suppress the humiliation in her heart. She was wearing a bamboo hat, and others could not see her appearance. But even if they were to see it, one feared that they would not be able to link this shabbily dressed and haggard-looking woman with the talented female that everyone in the Ding capital applauded. Chapter 655. In order to save money, Chinrochio could only hire an old horse carriage. When the horse carriage reached the east of the city, Chinrochio paid the money and quickly walked towards the inn that was mentioned in the letter. Upon entering the inn, Chinrochio looked around and did not see Xunyu's figure. Just as she was feeling suspicious in her heart, a waiter walked towards her and glanced at her before asking, "Is Foreign looking for a young lady?" Chinrochio was startled for a moment before nodding her head. Now that the entire Ding capital knew about the lawsuit between her and Xinhuan, she was somewhat guilty and feared that she would be recognized and pointed at. She was even more afraid that Xunyu would be discovered. That waiter said, "Foreign, please follow me." The waiter brought Chinrochio to a room on the upper floor of the inn and stopped at the door before smiling. "The person that Foreign is waiting for is inside." Then he left by himself. Chinrochio pushed the door open and saw a young female sitting at the table in the room. No matter how Chinrochio recognized that back view, who else could it be other than Xinyu? Chinrochio closed the door and cried out involuntarily, "Yours." Xinyu turned her head over and could not help but be startled when she saw Chinrochio's appearance. It was until Chen Rochio went forward to hold her hands that Shunyu could see Chen Rochio's face clearly before calling out, "Mother!" But then she frowned. "How did you become like this?" If one did not see it with one's own eyes, Shunyu would not believe that this sloppily dressed and simple female would be her noble, gentle, and generous mother. When Chen Rochio heard it, a trace of resentment flashed across her face, and she gritted her teeth. "If it was not for that slut Zai Qing and your heartless father, how would I end up like this?" Finishing, she looked at Shunyu anxiously. Where have you been these days? Do you know that mother's heart is very anxious? Are you all right? Did something happen?" Chen Rochio only had Shunyu as a daughter, and normally she would be pampered and loved, so the concern at the moment was not fake. When Shunyu heard it, she felt somewhat sad, but her face was still smiling. "Mother, do not be afraid. I am living very well now. I have found a backer that is even nobler than Wang Qian. With this backer, the Shin family will not dare to bully us in the future." Chen Rochio asked suspiciously, "Who are you talking about?" Shunyu hesitated for a while before saying, "His Highness the Crown Prince of the Qin country." Chen Rochio cried out in surprise, only to hear Shunyu quickly continuing to explain, "His Highness the Crown Prince treats me very well. At the beginning when I left the Shun family, it was His Highness the Crown Prince who saved me. After that, he wanted to send me back, but the Shin family was in trouble, so I stayed in the Crown Prince's residence. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince is a good person. Mother, don't feel bad about it. I'm really following His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. It's much better than following those people of the Wang clan who say one thing but mean another. I can't be on equal footing with Shin Dongling, right? If I return to the Shun family, grandmother and father are already dissatisfied with me. Who knows how they will betroth me? Mother, can you just listen to me this once?" Chen Rochio instinctively felt that it was not good, but after hearing that Huangfu House saved Xinyu, her expression slightly eased. But at the end, the other party was not a person of Ming Qi. Even if Chen Rochio did not understand the affairs of the court, she had been influenced by Shun Wan for so many years and had a basic vigilance. He is, after all, a person of the Qin country. Moreover, he is the crown prince. Seeing that Chen Rochio still did not agree, Xinyu's heart hardened and simply lied. His Highness the Crown Prince said that in the future when he returns to the Qin country, he will bestow me with a new identity and let me become his Sufei. Is this true? Chen Rochio was surprised for a moment. If Shun Yu were to leave Ming Qi and become the Sufei of the Crown Prince's residence in the Qin country, in the future she would be able to enjoy endless glory and splendor. After experiencing Shun Wan's matter, Chen Rochio's current thinking was different from before. What was the use of feelings? Feelings were too illusory. When the flowers are in bloom and the moon is round, one would be intimate, but in the blink of an eye, one would be treated coldly. And those smelly silver, riches, and splendor that were mentioned in the books were the things that one could really rely on. Without money, the Chen family could mock and ridicule this daughter of theirs. If their family had a Sufei of the Crown Prince, Chen Rochio's heart slowly warmed up. Absolutely true, Shun Yu said. Chen Rochio hesitated for a moment before saying, "Let this matter be discussed in the future. There is still one more matter at hand." Shun Yu asked, "What matter?" "Chang Zaiqing, that slut, schemed against me behind my back, saying one thing in front of me and another behind my back. I fell into her trap. Now I have become a street rat. But the person I hate the most is not Chang Zaiqing, but your father. If it was not for your father's protection, how would I end up like this?" He did not even put the past decades of husband and wife relationship in his eyes and let them live a good life with a clear conscience. "I am not reconciled. I hate." Chapter 656. I am not reconciled. I hate. Chen Rochio's words were filled with deep hatred. Now her face was haggard, and when she said those words, her expression was so ferocious that even Shun Yu jumped in shock. Shun Yu said, "Mother, what are you talking about? You have also seen the matter." Chen Rochio gritted her teeth. "Your father and I can be considered to have congenial feelings for each other, and have seen everything for so many years. I treat him wholeheartedly and never thought that he would guard me and live alone. but he cannot find someone to humiliate me. Even if he chased me out, he would still go against the Chen family in court. Now that the Chen family's luck is badly damaged, the Chen family would look at me with all kinds of ridicule. It is your father and Chang Zai-Ching that forced me to such a desperate situation. What is my reputation in the Ding capital? A hen that cannot lay eggs? A jealous woman? This is what your father is repaying me with. As Chun Rochio spoke, she sneered and said, "And that old fart, after marrying into the Chen family, she always pick on me. Isn't it because she herself is a third-rate female singer, so she cannot see others doing well? This time the matter between Chang Zai-Ching and your father was also pushed by her behind the scenes. Those people in the Shin family are all not good things." Shinyu could not help but frown as she felt that Shin Rochio's words were like a shrew scolding the streets. But speaking of the Shin family, until now Shinyu did not feel anything. Sure enough, following that, Shin Rochio looked at her and said, "In the beginning when your father wanted you to marry into the Wang family, I thought that you clearly liked someone else in your heart, but your father coaxed me and said that only the Wang family could protect you, so I could only agree. Who knows what kind of people the Wang family is? To actually not acknowledge you because of Shun Dongling, and now you do not even have your own identity. It is really too much of a bully. If your father had half a bit of consideration for the father-daughter relationship, one think that he would stand up for you. But look at what your father did. He actually wanted you to apologize to the Wang family, and even want to be on equal footing with Shin Dongling. Why is it that you, the dignified D young lady of the Shin family, have to be on equal footing with a Shu daughter? This is simply the biggest joke in the world. Does he even see you as his own daughter?" Chun Rochio's words were full of provocation. Currently, Chun Rochio had nothing, and there was no one standing on her side. It was not easy to find a daughter, and she feared that Shun Yu would be coaxed back by Shan Wan's few words. Then she would really be alone. If Shin Yu was still with her, Chun Rochio would at least have something to think about. When Shin Yu heard it, her expression sank. Speaking of which, it wasn't that there wasn't any father-daughter relationship between her and Shin Wan. But what she hated the most about the Shun family was that they had used her marriage as a raft, causing her to be unable to return home. It was said that it was for her own good, but Shun Yu had only suffered. Even though Huang Fu Hao treated her well, she was after all a concubine. A concubine, even if it was the crown prince's concubine, it was still the lowest level of concubine and could be casually thrown away like a plaything. In addition to Chin Rochio mentioning that there was someone else in her heart, thinking that there was no possibility at all with Fu Xiaoyi, she sighed sadly. "Mother, don't talk about these useless things anymore. It is impossible for His Highness Prince Ding, and I have never thought about him in this lifetime. Most likely we are not fated to be together." She then smiled bitterly. "Moreover, His Highness the Crown Prince treats me very well, and I also like him very much." Chen Rochio understood her daughter the most. So how could she not see the disappointment in Shin Yu's heart? She was angry and distressed, and even hated Fu Xiaoyi. Her own daughter was so good. So why could she not obtain the love of her heart? She took a deep breath and said, "The Shin family harmed us mother and daughter to this extent, so it must not be that simple. Do not worry, mother will definitely vent for us mother and daughter. Not a single person from the Shin family will be able to escape. Since I have been divorced and returned to my maiden family, there is no longer any relationship with the Shin family. Even if something happens to the Shun family, they will not be able to find it on my head. Now that you no longer have the identity of Shun Yu, you will definitely be safe." Chapter 657. Mother, what do you want to do? Shin Yu heard something wrong in Chun Rochio's words and asked worriedly. Chun Rochio sneered and replied, "Just wait and see. I came over just to inform you. Seeing that you are fine, mother will be at ease." Shin Yu could not ask anything from Chun Rochio and could only give up helplessly, but she ignored the flash of ruthlessness in Chun Rochio's eyes. After a few more days, the Ding capital seemed to have calmed down. Nothing new happened. It was just that it was almost the end of the year, and the people on the streets were getting busy. Naturally, everyone in the Shin mansion started to buy New Year's goods, and Luo Tan was still very happy. It was just that ever since the last incident, Shin Xin did not allow both of them to go out easily. If they were to go out, they would definitely bring along a bunch of guards, which was somewhat boring. Moreover, Feng and Ning was also feeling guilty about the previous incident, and after apologizing, one did not know if it was because of once bitten by a snake, twice shy, that she did not ask both of them out anymore. Luo Tan was also very bored in the residence, and after that she was so bored that she followed Luo Ling and Shun Xiao to the training grounds to watch the soldiers train. She dressed up as a male, and with Shun Xian and Luo Ling by her side, there was no need to be afraid. Shun Miao, on the other hand, quietly stayed in the room. She did not like to be lively and did not like to go shopping. Staying alone was the most reassuring thing. On this day, Mo Qing came back from outside to say that Song Zaiqing's husband and son had been brought to the Ding capital. Because they had to keep it a secret, they didn't dare to casually bring it into the mansion. Instead, they settled it in a private house in the east of the city. Shun Miao said, "You did very well." She remembered that in her previous lifetime, Chang Zaiqing's husband was a gambling addict and scoundrel. Because he was a drunkard, he was somewhat rough. If this kind of person were to be contaminated with the Shun mansion and have other thoughts in the future, he would be like a sticky candy, and it would take a lot of effort to clean him up. Moreover, who knew if there were people in the Shun residence monitoring the Shun mansion every day? If they were to see this father and son pair, one feared that there would be more trouble. Mo Qing repeatedly said that he did not dare, and asked Shun Miao, "When does young lady plan to see them father and son?" For Shun Miao to bring both father and son to the Ding capital, there must be a use for it. Before that, he would definitely meet with the other party for a chat. Just as Shun Miao was about to answer, she suddenly thought of something and paused. In Pei Lang's letter, Fu Xiao gave Shun Wan a difficult problem, which was to marry himself to Prince Zhou. What method did Shun Wanning use? Even though Shun Miao was not very clear, she could more or less guess that it was nothing more than some dirty tricks. Thus, when one stepped out of the Shun mansion's door, there might be danger lurking everywhere outside. These days were calm and peaceful. Perhaps it was because she had not gone out at all. If she had gone out, perhaps the other party would not have given up this opportunity. She wasn't so careless as to jump into a pit of fire, even though she knew it was a trap. Moreover, if she was related to the Tian family, she wouldn't be able to get away with just a few words. Shun Miao asked, "How many experts like you are there in the residence?" Mo Qing was surprised for a moment before frowning. Eldest young master should still have some subordinates, and master should also have some subordinates. Adding them up, there should not be more than 30 people. Mo Qing was indeed a top expert, and there were very few people like him. With 30 people protecting him, probably no one would dare to do anything to him. But this way, he would be too conspicuous on the streets. It would be strange if no one noticed him. Moreover, to suddenly have so many guards following. Shun Xiao and Shun Xian were not fools. Shun Miao shook her head. Understood. Is young lady worried about safety on the road? Mo Qing asked. At that time, one can send more manpower. Mo Qing also felt that it was somewhat strange, as Shun Miao was never a timid person. Today's matter was somewhat abnormal. Chapter 658. No need. I know what to do. You go down first. Shun Miao said. Mo Qing no longer spoke and silently retreated. Shun Miao looked around, and her eyes landed on the half-open window in the room, and her heart suddenly moved. She instructed Guyu, "Open the window even more." Guyu was surprised. "Young lady, it is still windy outside. Be careful not to catch a cold when you open the window." She really felt that it was very strange. When Shun Miao was young, her body was very afraid of the cold, but she did not know why these days she seemed to like to sleep with the windows open at night. But now that it was still broad daylight, why did she still need to open the window? "I am not cold," Shun Miao calmly said. "Go and open it." Guyu looked at Shun Miao's thick outer clothes, but did not dare to refute, and opened the window in confusion. For the entire day, Shun Miao stayed in the room, and she would glance at the window from time to time, causing Jingzhe and Guyu to also look at the window. They thought that there would be some flowers blooming, but there was clearly nothing on the windowsill. Shun Miao read for a while, and then walked to the windowsill to stand for a while. One did not know what she was looking at. Unknowingly, the sky turned dark. After having dinner and freshening up, Jingzhe and Guyu both withdrew. Shen Miao cut the oil lamp again, and did not know how many times she had cut it. She only felt that it was quiet outside, as if the entire Ding capital had fallen into a deep sleep and the window was still empty. A trace of disappointment flashed in Shen Miao's eyes, and she used the chess pieces on the table to knock on the oil lamp in boredom. The little pieces of the lamp fell on the table and quickly disappeared. Shen Miao gradually felt sleepy and closed her eyes as she laid on the table to take a nap. When Xie Jingxing entered the room, he saw the scene of Shen Miao sleeping soundly on the table. The window was not closed, and the door was specially left open for him. The light from the lamp was slightly swaying due to him bringing the cold wind in. Shen Miao used her hands as a pillow and buried her head in her arms as she slept peacefully. He walked to Shen Miao's side and looked at Shen Miao. He paused for a moment before taking off his cloak and gently covering Shen Miao's body. Shen Miao was, after all, a vigilant person, and when he moved, her body moved slightly to the side. She raised her head, but did not open her eyes as she said in a daze, "Shao Li Zi, massage Ben Gong's shoulders." Xie Jingxing. He simply leaned against the cabinet at the side and looked at Shen Miao. He laughed and said, "Hey, did you dream of being an empress again?" This abrupt sentence made Shen Miao wake up abruptly, and coincidentally a gust of cold wind blew in from outside. She sneezed, and in a moment she was no longer sleepy. Xie Jingxing walked to the window and closed it, making the room much warmer. He crossed his arms and leaned against the window, asking, "Why are you sleeping here?" Shen Miao looked at the purple-clothed youth, rubbed her eyes, and asked, "Why are you only here now?" There was a hint of reproach in her words. She had probably just woken up from her sleep, and her mind was not very clear, so she did not realize that there was anything wrong with her words. However, Xie Jingxing noticed it. There was a moment of silence in the room as he walked forward step by step until he reached the table where Shen Miao was sitting. He placed his hands on the table and leaned over to ask, "Are you waiting for me?" Shen Miao recovered to her senses and quickly replied, "No." Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up, and his tone was somewhat regretful. "Oh, heard that you waited for me in front of the window for an entire day. So it was not true. Since there is nothing, then I will leave." Finishing, he made a move to leave. "Wait!" Shen Miao called out to him. Xie Jingxing said, "What is it? If you know, then why are you still asking me?" Shen Miao gritted her teeth. Facing Xie Jingxing, she really could not use any calmness and magnanimity because this person was exceptionally vile. Thinking about it, her actions outside the window today was too deliberate. Xie Jingxing most likely had arranged people in the Shen mansion, and it was not strange for him to return and report to Xie Jingxing after seeing her like that. It was just that Xie Jingxing clearly knew and still deliberately asked, which was too vile. Chapter 659. I'm waiting for you. I need your help with something. She took a deep breath and said, "Speak." Xie Jingxing pulled out a chair and sat opposite Shen Miao. He seemed to be in a very good mood, and even his beautiful peach blossom eyes were more charming than usual. There should be quite a number of capable people under you, and there should also be quite a number of experts. There should be quite a number of people like my guard Mo Qing? Shen Miao asked probingly. That kind of person is considered an expert? Xie Jingxing sneered. Why don't I send you a few true experts? Lend it to me for a few people to use. Shen Miao said, I will pay. Xie Jingxing swept a glance at her and slightly frowned. What do you want to do? Shen Miao thought that since Xie Jingxing already knew about the matter of Chang Ziqing's husband and son, there was no need to hide it from him. Chang Ziqing's husband and son in the Lu province have already been brought over to the Ding capital and arranged at a place in the east of the city. One fear that the people around me are not enough. You want to use my people? Shen Miao said, I will pay. Xie Jingxing asked, Do I look like I lack money? Shen Miao was silent. Indeed, Xie Jingxing did not look like he lacked money. It was as if he had so much money that he could not use it all and could almost help the world. Even the richest person in Mingqi would not be able to spend as much as him. She simply asked, What do I have to do for you to agree? Xie Jingxing narrowed his eyes. Do you always have this attitude when you ask for help? Shen Miao finally got annoyed and said, forget it. Take it that I did not say anything about this matter. It is already late. Your Highness Prince Rui, please. When she was angry, she would call Xie Jingxing as Your Highness Prince Rui, and it sounded very distant. As expected, Xie Jingxing frowned and looked unhappy. I did not say that you were not allowed to use it. Xie Jingxing called out to her. What is the hurry? Shen Miao sat back down again, and Xie Jingxing's beautiful eyes stared at her. His eyes slightly flashed, but he said, say that you are stupid. You are really stupid. Why is there a need to give up what is near and seek what is far? What do you mean? This prince is in a good mood today. Xie Jingxing said unhurriedly. I will personally accompany you. In the middle of the night, the moon disappeared, leaving only a few stars hanging sparsely in the night sky. Because it was winter, the weather was unusually cold. There was a thin layer of snow on the ground, but when one stepped on it, the sound of ice shards could be heard. However, because it was New Year's Eve, every household hung bright red lanterns under their eaves. The lanterns were red, and the snow was white. It was a very interesting scene. At this moment, there were two people standing under the eaves. The tall young man was bending down slightly, tying a scarf around the face of another person beside him. The two of them were very close, and if they came closer, they could hear the short girl complaining, Why do I have to wear this? Shoo, the young man whispered in her ear. Just take it as you're afraid that your peerless beauty will cause trouble if others see it. Don't ask too much. Shen Miao sneered. Peerless beauty? Then you should block yourself first. There's no need for me. The young man had a handsome face and did not seem to notice the sarcasm in the other person's words. He said indifferently, My power is monstrous, and no one dares to find trouble with me. Shen Miao. Shen Miao did not think that after telling Xie Jingxing about the Lu province father and son matter, Xie Jingxing would personally accompany her. And it was actually now. In the middle of the night, one feared that the father and son would be asleep, and Xie Jingxing actually wanted to do it at this time. But Xie Jingxing's reason was that there were fewer people at night. And even if there was someone accompanying during the day, what if no one discovered it? What he said was too reasonable. And Shen Miao could not find any words to refute, but she did not expect that when Xie Jingxing said it, the two of them directly walked on the street. Chapter 660. Although it looked like there was no one on the street, it was hard to avoid feeling uneasy. What's there to be afraid of? My people are following. If there's anything wrong, they'll warn you. Xie Jingxing said. In the time that Shen Miao was distracted, Xie Jingxing had already tied the scarf on her face, revealing only a pair of eyes. Her eyes were round and watery, the black and white of her eyes distinct and clear. Under the dim light of the lantern, she looked even more adorable. Xie Jingxing helped her put on the hat and raise his eyebrows. Not bad. In order to avoid complications, Shen Miao finally found a set of manservant's clothes to wear. The hat was somewhat inappropriate as it often covered her eyes. It was just that she had forgotten to bring her cloak when she came out. Xie Jingxing looked at her for a moment before covering Shen Miao with his cloak and said, Let's go. Just like that? Shen Miao was extremely surprised. The east of the city is not far. Xie Jingxing disapprovingly said, It is also good to walk around. You have not seen the Ding capital at night, right? Shen Miao was silent. Most of the nights that she had seen were within the square palace walls of Mingqi. Sometimes she would sit in the huge Kuining palace and think about the annoying matters in the inner palace. Once she sat, it would be the entire night. Sometimes she would go to the imperial garden to stroll and see Fu Xiu-yi and different beauties talking and laughing. As the head of the 6 palaces, it seemed that her nights were like one night for 10 years, lonely, unfree, cold, and unnoticed by others. She had also regretted and envied the carefree life outside the palace. Xie Jingxing said, No one here sees you and knows you. Do what you want to do. Shen Miao looked at the other person's handsome brows and suddenly felt some envy in her heart. Speaking of which, Xie Jingxing was able to live till now. He was the little marquis of the residence of the Marquis of Lin and also the younger brother of the great Liang's Emperor Yonglu, Prince Rui. Everyone could only see the glory on the surface, but the things that he carried were definitely not lesser than Xin Miao. However, his prideful and arrogant nature seemed to have never changed. Nothing external could change his strength. It was as if no matter how the sun and moon changed and how the stars moved, he would still stand there in an unshakable manner. One could only look up to him. Xin Miao envied people with strong hearts. She felt that she was not as strong as Xie Jingxing because she would occasionally think of Wan Yu and Fu Ming and the various things in the past lifetime and would feel tired. Xie Jingxing's eyes were sharp as he pinched her chin and asked, "What is wrong with you?" Xin Miao broke free from his hand and turned her head. Nothing. She did not want others to know the emotions in her heart, so she turned and walked 2 steps, but she was not used to wearing a man's boots and the ground was slippery because of the ice, so she almost fell down. Luckily, Xie Jingxing grabbed her arm and frowned as he reprimanded, "Be careful." But the hand in his sleeve slid down and grabbed Xin Miao's hand. His hand was slender and cold, but it was just nice to wrap Xin Miao's hand in his palm. Xin Miao's heart moved and subconsciously wanted to break free, but she did not expect that Xie Jingxing's grip was so tight that she was unable to break free. Xie Jingxing said faintly, "I will hold you so that you will not slip. I will be careful and not slip." Xin Miao said, "Then I'm afraid I'll slip. You hold my hand," he continued without even frowning. Xin Miao. Heavy snow covered the entire street, and it was as if the street was silvery white and the lanterns reflected the lovely rain and snow. Xin Miao would look up at the sky from time to time. The sky was very good and very spacious, much better looking than the squarish sky. The street was very quiet, and no one would discover her. Some wishes that were not fulfilled in her previous lifetime were fulfilled at this moment. Her palm, which was held by the young man beside her, was slightly damp, but a smile gradually appeared on her face. Chapter 661. Then I was really nice, Xin Miao thought, but she did not see that in the eyes of the handsome youth, there was a flash of a smile that was more moving than fireworks. In a house in the east of the city, there was a loud snoring sound coming from one of the rooms. The entire room was filled with a strong smell of alcohol that was pungent to the nose. There were several jars of wine lying on the floor, and the man on the bed was sleeping soundly. In the room next door, there was an 8 or 9-year-old child lying on the bed. This room was obviously much narrower than the room next door. After lying down for a while, he sat up, as if disturbed by the snoring next door. He stood up and walked to the small courtyard surrounded by bamboo fences with a blanket draped over him. The child had gone to the latrine and was about to return to his room when he caught a glimpse of 2 people standing in the courtyard. He was so startled that he was about to cry out, but he saw the taller person flicking a stone at him. In an instant, the child was rooted to the spot, unable to speak. The 2 people then walked towards him. Under the dim light of the lanterns outside, the faces of the 2 people could be seen clearly. One of them was petite and wore the clothes of a manservant, but it could still be seen that she was a woman. She wore a cloak that was so large that it almost didn't fit her body. She also wore a scarf that covered her face. Except for her eyes, everything below her nose was covered. But it made her eyes even more clear, making one think that if the veil was removed, she would also be a beauty. As for the person next to this petite figure, the boy was almost dumbfounded. This person was extremely tall and straight, and wore a beautiful purple robe embroidered with golden cloud patterns. This robe was a little loose, and the belt was black, which made his robe flutter even more. His appearance was even more handsome and beautiful, and when his peach blossom eyes looked over in the night, it felt as if the snow in winter had also bloomed into spring flowers. Could it be that he was an immortal that came down from the heavens? Otherwise, why would his every move be so elegant and beautiful that one could not take their eyes off him? The petite person rolled her eyes at the purple-robed man and then asked softly, "What is your name?" The child felt his throat loosen, coughed twice, and suddenly found that he could speak again. The person's voice was that of a woman, very gentle, and the child's mood gradually became less fearful. He nervously said, "I am Huai Sheng." "Huai Sheng?" The female asked. "Is your mother's name Chang Zaiqing?" Huai Sheng was stunned, and then his eyes turned red. He carefully looked at the woman and asked, "Do you know my mother? Do you know where my mother is? I haven't seen her for a long time. They said she wouldn't come back. Someone brought us here, saying that we could see Mother, but Mother is not here." Shen Miao sighed in her heart. This child was about the same age as Su Minglang 2 years ago, but at that time, Su Minglang was a naive glutinous rice ball, and this child was much more pitiful. When Chang Zhaoqing abandoned her husband and son, it was because her husband drank and gambled all day and could no longer live. But before she left, she did not think about how hard it would be for her young son to live with such an irresponsible father. Thus Chang Zaiqing was not worthy of sympathy, nor was she worthy of forgiveness, because a mother who was this cruel was not worthy to be called a mother. "Do not be afraid." Shen Miao took out a handkerchief and wiped the child's tears. Huai Sheng was somewhat overwhelmed by the favor. This female's eyes were very beautiful, and one thought that her looks were not bad. Even though she was wearing a manservant's clothes, her pair of hands were fair and tender. Huai Sheng knew that this kind of hands were different from their hands that were full of calluses. One look, and one could tell that she came from a wealthy family. This female must be very wealthy, and for such a noble person to wipe the tears of a lowly commoner like him. Even his own mother did not treat him so gently. Huai Sheng was somewhat in a daze looking at it. A light cough sounded, and it was the purple-robed male who was standing beside Shen Miao. He glanced at Huai Sheng and coldly said, "Go in." Huai Sheng's entire body turned cold from that glance. He did not know why, but this extremely beautiful male did not do anything and just gave him a faint glance, but it would also make one feel scared. He regained his senses with a quiver and saw the female in front taking back her handkerchief with a gentle gaze. Shen Miao was only thinking of her own Fu Ming and Wan Yu. Fu Ming and Wan Yu had a father like Fu Xiu-yi, so how was it not hard? Even though she did not escape, she was also powerless to change the ending of her children, and was no better than Chang Zaiqing. Suppressing the complex emotions in her heart, she said, "Huai Sheng, bring us to see your father." Chapter 662. Huai Sheng opened the door to the room, and upon entering, there was a strong smell of alcohol. Shen Miao could not help but frown even though she was wearing a veil. Seeing Shen Miao frowning, Huai Sheng seemed to be somewhat embarrassed. He jogged over and took out a diesel lamp from the other side and found a match to light it up. The light flickered as it lit up the room a little brighter. One saw a middle-aged man lying on the bed. This man was very thin and weak, and even his skin was waxy yellow. At the moment he was snoring, Huai Sheng looked anxiously at the two people in front of him, and the female said, "Wake him up." Huai Sheng nodded his head and walked to the man's side before gently shaking the man's arm and softly said, "Father, father, someone is coming." That man did not have any reaction at first and seemed to be annoyed by Huai Sheng's shaking. He subconsciously gave a slap and scolded, "Why are you howling in the middle of the night?" Huai Sheng instinctively closed his eyes, but before that slap landed, he carefully opened his eyes and saw his father's fearful gaze. He followed his father's gaze and looked over. That beautiful youth who had been looking coldly and indifferently had unknowingly arrived in front of him, and his slender hand was strangling the man's throat. Immortal? Immortal! Huai Sheng panicked and was both afraid and worried, but at the end he resisted the fear and said, "My father did not mean to offend you. I beg you to spare his life." Shen Miao swept a glance at the man who was so scared that he instantly lost all his sleepiness before speaking calmly. "Let him go." Xie Jingxing then released his hand. Huai Sheng was somewhat afraid. His father knelt on the ground and looked at the two people in front of him. His body could not stop trembling, and most likely he instinctively felt the dangerous atmosphere of the other party, especially that beautiful-looking man. Shen Miao opened her mouth. "You are Tianli?" Tianli nodded his head and said, "This one is." Shun Miao swept a glance at Tian Li. It was rumored that in the Lu province, Tian Li was also a handsome scholar and overflowing with talent. Thus he was able to capture Song Zaiqing's heart, and the two of them became husband and wife. It was just that after failing in the imperial examinations, she gradually developed a sense of self-loathing and simply loitered around the gambling dens and restaurants, drinking and gambling. Song Zaiqing hated these kind of days. Thus she left home. Looking at Tian Li's appearance, one could slightly understand why Song Zaiqing would leave home. Tian Li no longer had any of the elegant demeanor he once had. The person in front of him was clearly a frustrated and downtrodden man. Song Zaiqing is your wife? Shun Miao asked. Hearing that, Tian Li's body trembled, and he raised his head to look at Shun Miao. Even if he tried his best to conceal it, Shun Miao could still see the anger and humiliation in his eyes. No need to worry. I am not Song Zaiqing's friend, so if you have any thoughts, just say it. Shun Miao said. Tian Li looked at Shun Miao seriously, as if he was confirming if what Shun Miao said was true or not. Shun Miao looked face to face with him, and after a long while, Tian Li then spat on the ground. That cheap woman ran away with my money. Shameless. Huai Sheng shrank a little, and there was some sadness in his eyes. Shun Miao's gaze landed on Huai Sheng and said, Huai Sheng, go to the courtyard. I have some words to speak with your father. Huai Sheng looked at Shun Miao and then looked at Tian Li. In the end, he did not say anything and silently took a blanket and went out. After Huai Sheng went out, Shun Miao then let Tian Li clearly explain the ins and outs of the matter. It was similar to what the people that Shun Miao sent to inquire about. Song Zaiqing's husband was originally Tian Li. When Tian Li and Song Zaiqing got married, it was considered a much-told story. Song Zaiqing was a talented female in the Lu province, and Tian Li was also a talented scholar. Tian Li's family also had a few shops, and even though it was not considered as a wealthy family, it could be considered as a small, wealthy family. Chapter 663. It was just that later on the Tian family's business was challenged by others and their shops were mortgaged. The Tian family's husband and wife could not take the blow and passed away one after another. Tian Li was also affected by this and failed in the imperial examinations that year. At that time, Song Zaiqing was already pregnant and gave birth to Huai Sheng. Thus, there were more places that needed money. The poor couple had 100 sorrows, and both of them quarreled incessantly. Tian Li loved to drink and gamble, and Song Zaiqing despised that this was not the life she wanted to live. Thus, one day, she sold the last remaining land deed in the house for money and ran away. Tian Li also let people search, but no one could find Song Zaiqing's whereabouts. Thinking about it, Tian Li did not know about the friendship between Chang Hu and old General Shun. Thus he did not know that Song Zaiqing came to the Ding capital. Tian Li was still gnashing his teeth when he talked about Song Zaiqing, this poisonous woman. That land deed was left for Huai Sheng to marry when he grows up, but she even wanted to sell it away. She does not even have Huai Sheng in her heart. She's just a slut. Shun Miao's eyes drooped down. Xie Jingxing was standing at the other side and looking out of the window, as if he did not have any interest in Tian Li's words. However, he was just casually standing there, and one was unable to ignore that chilling aura. At the end, Tian Li asked, someone said that by bringing both of us here, one would be able to see that woman. This young lady, the person who brought us to the Ding capital, is it you? Tian Li could tell with one glance that the identity of these two people in front of him was not ordinary, especially that male. How would an ordinary person have such an attitude? Moreover, to break into a private residence in the middle of the night and be so arrogant. Ordinary people would not have this kind of guts. It is me, Shun Miao said. I know where Song Zaiqing is. Tian Li was startled for a moment, and when he opened his mouth again, his voice was somewhat trembling as he asked, She? Where is she? Shun Miao frowned slightly. In Tian Li's voice, other than anger, there was a trace of longing. Perhaps it was because Song Zai-Ching had been a married couple with him for many years, or perhaps it was because Song Zai-Ching was after all Huaisheng's mother. But this Tianli was not as powerful as what he said and had a little softness towards Song Zai-Ching. This was not something that Shun Miao was happy to see. She said, Chang Zai-Ching is currently in the formidable Great General Shin residence in the Ding capital and has become the concubine of the third master of the Shin residence, Xinwan. Now she is pregnant, and Xinwan treats her very well and dotes on her. One think that not long later she will give birth to Shun Wan's son. There are no other children in Shun Wan residence, and once the child is born, perhaps Chang Zai-Ching will be promoted to the official position. Even if she is not, that child will live a life of luxury and glory. Tian Li's expression became extremely interesting. It was like the anger of being cuckolded, humiliation and unwillingness, all mixed together in a complicated mess. That little bit of softness in his heart also vanished after Shun Miao's words. The children that Chang Zai-Ching gave birth to would be able to live a life of luxury, but looking at Huaisheng, even the title deed for his future wife was sold and nothing was left. Many years later, the two children that crawled out from Chang Zai-Ching's womb would have thousands of different lives, like clouds and mud. What people were most afraid of was comparison, and Tian Li's heart would not be reconciled no matter what. Shin Miao smiled gently. Not only that, Third Master Shin even divorced his wife for Song Zai-Ching and went against his wife in court. One think that he really dotes on Song Zai-Ching. Now the original third Shin foreign has become a rat that everyone wants to beat up. It is really pitiful. Tian Li sneered. This third Master Shin also has no brains. Toward Xinwan, Tian Li did not have any good impression, as the hatred of stealing one's wife was absolutely irreconcilable. Moreover, as a poor person, one would always have enmity towards the rich and powerful. Especially when Song Zai-Ching often showed that she yearned for wealth in front of Tian Li. Tian Li was even more resentful toward Xinwan. Chapter 664. To tell the truth, I was entrusted by Third Shin Foreign. Shun Miao said, Third Shin Foreign was forced by Third Shin Master and Song Zai-Ching to a dead end, but now there is no way at all. Third Shin Foreign is planning to put up a life and death struggle, and to make Third Shin Master and Song Zai-Ching uncomfortable. Thus she found you. Me? Tian Li looked at Shin Miao and gradually realized something in his heart. Noble person's meaning is, explain to Third Shin Master at an appropriate time that Song Zai-Ching is your wife. Let Third Shin Master end this mistake as soon as possible. Tian Li said, Shin Miao did not give Tian Li any time to hesitate and said, could it be that you are willing to see your wife grow old together with others? You still have feelings for her and want to let her live? Does she even consider half a bit for you? If she still has a conscience in her heart, not to mention yourself, she would be reluctant to part with Huaisheng. But the truth is that she would even take away the last bit of savings that she left for Huaisheng. Song Zai-Ching only has herself in her heart, and she never put you father and son in her heart. Encountering such injustice and still want to repay evil with good. Tian Li, could it be that your Tian family are all disciples of Bodhisattva and are all merciful and indiscriminate? These words were very impolite, and the corner of Xie Jingxing's lips rose slightly when he heard it, and he looked at Shun Miao meaningfully. Tian Li's face flushed red when he heard it, but he did not dare and could not refute Shun Miao's words. The most important thing is, why should Huaisheng live in such hardships and hardship, but Song Zai-Ching and Xinwan's son can be free and unfettered? If one day Huaisheng met this younger brother of a different father, at that time the younger brother would be a person, and Huaisheng would only be able to serve him like a servant. Song Zai-Ching would only recognize the younger brother and not him. So what would Huaisheng think? Tian Li, think about it carefully. Are you really willing? Shun Miao's words always carried a hint of bewitchment, making one unconsciously think along with her words. And what she said was obviously what Tian Li was most concerned about. No matter how bad Tian Li was, and even if he was very rude to Huaisheng, he still had a little more conscience than Song Zai-Ching. else he would not be a gambling addict, but still left the last piece of land for Huaisheng to marry. Huaisheng said, "Benefactor, I know that I am unwilling, but she is Huaisheng's mother after all. I just want to get her back. If she is beaten to death, Huaisheng will also be sad. Do not let Huaisheng know of this matter." Xin Miao said, "After the matter is done, third Xin Foreign will pay you father and son a large sum of money. This amount of silver is much more than the original title deed. With this amount of silver, you can run as far as you want. Start a new life in a place where no one knows you. Without Song Zaiqing, Huaisheng still has you as his father. Treat Huaisheng well, and Huaisheng might not be worse off than now." There were two things in this world that could not be held back: the water that had been spilled and the people that had walked out. Song Zaiqing had taken the initiative to walk out of your life, and now she is living a good life. So how are you going to chase her back? Because of your sincerity, or because of Huaisheng and her mother's concern? Do you think that this is possible? Tianli painfully closed his eyes. What Xin Miao said was not wrong. Song Zaiqing was living so well now, and there was really no reason to go back to that unbearable life. If she really cared about him, and cared about the mother-son relationship with Huaisheng, then she would not have sold the title deed and escaped. The female, wearing a veil in front, was still speaking calmly. Every person for themselves, the heavens and earth will destroy them. She was heartless first, so why do you need to talk about righteousness? Right now, there is a chance to change your life. If you miss it once, there would not be a second time. No matter if you are stepping on Song Zaiqing's life to move forward, you are not wrong. Because this is what Song Zaiqing owes you, father and son. Will you do it or not? Chapter 665. Following Xin Miao's words, many things flashed past Tian Li's eyes. Chong Zaiqing's disgusted eyes, the neighbors pointing at him after he escaped, Huaisheng always sitting alone in the corner, not knowing what he was thinking, and forever wearing tattered clothes. If one day he could change his life, and be like those well-off rich families to give Huaisheng a good life. Tianli suddenly raised his head, and in an instant made up his mind. "Do. I promise to listen to all your instructions, but you must give me enough money so that both of us, father and son, can leave this place without worrying about food and clothing." Xin Miao raised her eyebrows. Sometimes rumors were not credible, and it was said that Tianli was like a scoundrel. One did not think that it would be so simple today. Tianli was not difficult to deal with. Perhaps it was because of Huaisheng. Even though this man did not have any ability and his temperament was not good, but at the end he still had a conscience. "The money will be given to you." The one who spoke was Xie Jingxing. He stood in the shadows and leaned against the door as he spoke lazily. "Do not have any other ideas, otherwise." Tianli suddenly trembled and quickly lowered his head as he spoke in fear. This lowly one does not dare. One did not know why, but when facing this man, it made him feel an indescribable fear. Even from the beginning till now, the one who spoke was a masked female, but the purple-clad male's aura was pervasive in the narrow room. Xin Miao glanced at Xie Jingxing. Xie Jingxing was rather useful. If one were to threaten someone, there was no need to say any harsh words and just directly bring Xie Jingxing over to that side, and the other party would wilt first. When Xie Jingxing and Xin Miao both left the room, Huaisheng came over and looked at Xin Miao before asking timidly, "Are you able to find mother?" Xin Miao looked at Huaisheng and said, "Sleep early." She then took the lead and walked out. Her steps were, after all, a little hurried, and Xie Jingxing followed. After leaving the alley in the east of the city, they reached the streets outside. Xie Jingxing glanced at Xin Miao's expression and said, "You feel sorry for that child? One must continue to do apologies." Xin Miao said, "I am also a selfish person. You did not do anything wrong." Xie Jingxing casually said, "You are not a disciple of Bodhisattva." He used the words that Xin Miao said to Tian Li just now to comfort Xin Miao. Xin Miao looked at him and said, "You are." Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. "What do you mean?" "You accompanied me out in the middle of the night and helped me threaten Tian Li to prevent future troubles. You are a disciple of Bodhisattva. Otherwise, why would you be so kind? Xie Jingxing chuckled. You don't seem to appreciate it at all. Shen Miao's lips slowly curled up. His relationship with Xie Jingxing had unknowingly gradually changed. There was no need to be tit for tat, as the other party was very intelligent and was even more magnanimous. It seemed that there were many things that he did not have to do alone, which made it easier for him. For example, at this very moment, on the deserted snowy street, they walked side by side as if they were taking a stroll. She seemed to still be that Empress shun in her bones, but also seemed to have something that she did not have in the past. Song Zai Qing's matter? Do you need my help? Xie Jingxing said lazily. If you beg me, I can consider it. Then there is no need for your Highness Prince Rue to worry. Shun Miao smiled. Lest there be any side issues. You have a good idea again? Xie Jingxing glanced at her and said with a smile that was not a smile, sometimes feel that when would there be a difficult problem that you are unable to solve, perhaps you will also beg me. Most likely there is no such thing, Shun Miao answered. Chapter 666. Regret. Xie Jingxing's words were filled with regret. Shun Miao smiled. There were new things happening in the Ding capital every day, but the new things that happened every day would quickly cover up the new things that happened a few days ago. For example, the lawsuit between the Shun and Chen family a few days ago. Everyone treated it as a joke, and after seeing it, they would forget about it. As for the Shen residents, it was the same. The servants still did what they needed to do, and the only difference was that Xiaoshui Yuan had changed to a new master, and the new master had gained Shenwan's favor, almost catching up to third Shenforen who had just entered the household. Compared to Chen Roqiu, Song Zai Qing was better at building relationships with the surrounding people. Most likely it was because she did not have Chen Roqiu's air of self-righteousness. She was hearty and delicate, and the way she treated others made others feel comfortable. Not only did Shenwan like her, even Shen Gui and old Shenforen also felt that she was not bad and felt that it was a wise decision for Shenwan to divorce Chen Roqiu. Shenwan treated Song Zai Qing well, and old Shenforen specially found an eminent monk to take a look, saying that the child in Song Zai Qing's stomach was definitely a male. Old Shenforen's last bit of nitpicking towards Song Zai Qing's birth was gone. The most urgent matter in the Shen residence was to quickly add a male child. Otherwise, outsiders would laugh at the Shen residents for having no descendants. Shenwan was always smiling every day. Song Zai Qing gave him advice and was able to properly manage the matters in the residence, as if she was very familiar with it. He was happy to be relaxed, to be able to write poetry and also manage the family business. There was no male that would not like such a virtuous wife. On this day, Song Zai Qing and Shenwan were talking in the courtyard. Song Zai Qing was wrapped in a thick fur coat, and there was a brazier by her feet and a heater in her hands. Because he was afraid that she would catch a cold, Shenwan let the surrounding maids do their best to serve her. Song Zai Qing said, "Master is somewhat free today." Shenwan pulled her hand to his and smiled. "Not only today. These days there are no matters in court, and one can accompany you and the child more." "That is really good." Song Zai Qing smiled. "The child can also get closer to father." These words made Shenwan extremely happy. He hugged Song Zai Qing in his embrace and sighed. "Now what I hope in my heart is nothing more than for you to give birth to a child. Then all these things that I have done would not be in vain." Chen Roqiu seemed to have understood something, and seeing that Shenwan's brows did not relax, she asked, "Is Master still worried about fifth Shen young lady's matter a few days ago? To let Shen Miao marry to Prince Zhou, or to let Shen Miao and Prince Zhou have a relationship?" No matter which one it was, until now there was no news at all. It seemed that things weren't going well. Even though Song Zai Qing did not know why Shenwan wanted so much, she knew that this matter was definitely related to Shenwan's career. Shenwan smiled bitterly and shook his head. These days Shen Xen has been watching Shen Miao very well, and Shen Miao did not even leave the residence, thus one could not find an opportunity. It's like an iron bucket, it's hard to make a move. As he spoke, he seemed to be disappointed. This can't go on. Song Zaiqing's eyes turned and smiled. What is so difficult about this? If fifth Shen young lady does not go out, then let fifth Shen young lady take the initiative to go out. To tell the truth, if fifth Shen young lady were to go out, General Shen would inevitably let her bring a group of guards. General Shen is after all from the military, and the people around him are all experts. If one really wanted to make a move, one might not succeed in one shot. It is better to let fifth Shen young lady take the initiative to go out and moreover sneak out, so that General Shen would not find out. This way it would be much easier. Shen Wan's eyes flashed, and after thinking for a moment, he still shook his head. Shen Miao usually does not have any secrets, so it would be difficult to coax her out. Even Shen Miao had a good relationship with a young lady called Feng and Ning, and these days she was staying in the Feng residence, and if Shen Miao were to come out in Feng and Ning's name, Shen Miao would definitely be alert. Chapter 667. Young Lady. No matter how calm she usually is, she is still timid, and there will be repercussions in her heart. Song Zaiqing, however, smiled gently. Master might as well take an unconventional approach. For example, using fifth Shen young lady's parents or older brother as a raft, and say that they are in danger or something. One would be flustered, and no matter how calm fifth Shen young lady usually is, when it concerns one's own blood relatives, one think that one would panic. Master might as well make use of this opportunity. When Shen Wan heard that, he first thought about it carefully before holding Song Zaiqing's hands tightly. Even though there are some loopholes, it is still a good idea. Once it is perfected in detail, perhaps it could really be put to use. He looked at Song Zaiqing with some excitement and did not hide the appreciation in his eyes. You always give me surprises. Song Zaiqing lowered her head slightly and smiled. Master is really joking. Now that one is following Master, one would do one's best to think for Master. Even though this matter is not open and above board, but Zaiqing also know that there is no father and son in court, and Zaiqing would put Master first. Actually, the matter of scheming against Shen Miao was considered a vicious plan if it was set out. Even though Shen Wan was very appreciative of Song Zaiqing's ingenious plan for him, but in the future when he thought about it, he would inevitably feel that Song Zaiqing was ruthless. Song Zaiqing took the lead to say it out herself. First she said that there was no father and son in court, and then she put Shen Wan first in everything. Not only did it not make Shen Wan feel bad, it made Shen Wan appreciate Song Zaiqing even more. He felt that she was broad-minded, and it was rare for her to think of him wholeheartedly. She was a rare female. Therefore Shen Wan looked at Song Zaiqing affectionately. With such a beauty, what more can one ask for? Song Zaiqing also meekly said, "It is Zaiqing's fortune to meet Master." Zaiqing dare not forget Master's good treatment of Zaiqing. The lower she sat, the more Shen Wan doted on her, but did not see the flash of pride in Song Zaiqing's eyes. In Song Zaiqing's eyes, any man or any feelings were just passing clouds. Only those who had truly experienced poverty would know the value of wealth. She wanted to hold on to Shen Wan tightly, not because of Shen Wan himself, but because Shen Wan could bring her a life without worrying about food and clothing. Chang Zhaoqing was different from Chen Roqiu. Chen Roqiu still loved Shen Wan in her heart, so Chen Roqiu would lose her mind because of Shen Wan's actions. What Song Zaiqing loved was the wealth of the Shen residence and the identity of an official's foreign. Thus she was more clear-headed about what she had to do. For a man like Shen Wan and a person like Chen Roqiu, who was an exquisite person, it was inevitable that they would end up like this. Song Zaiqing knew in her heart that just by relying on poetry and songs, it was not enough to capture this man's heart. She had to display her talents and make Shen Wan feel that she was useful to him. Only then would Shen Wan never give up on her. Song Zaiqing did very well. Shen Wan accompanied Chang Zhaoqing for a while before he got up and left. He still had some official business to attend to, so he seriously instructed Chang Zhaoqing's servants before leaving with his servants. When he returned to his study, his personal manservant slowly walked over with a letter and said, "Master, The gatekeeper said that someone handed a letter to you, but I don't know who sent it. Shenwan took the letter and saw that the top of the envelope was also empty. It was obvious that the sender was afraid that others would notice the signature. As officials in court, they would occasionally have some confidential letters. Thus, Shenwan did not dare to delay and quickly opened the letter. The first line of words that opened the letter made Shenwan's entire person freeze on the spot. That line of words said, "Third Shen Master. Do you know that your favorite concubine is a used shoe?" Shenwan almost lost his balance. He supported himself with one hand on the table and calmed himself down. Only then did he quickly continue to read the letter. The letter was written very simply, but the contents of the letter were not simple at all. That letter said that Song Zaiqing had already married before in the Lu province and had a son. Now that she was in the Shen residence and had become Shenwan's concubine, the most important thing was that at this time, Song Zaiqing had not separated from her original husband. If it was more serious, Shenwan could even say that he had seized another's wife and could be sued in court. Shenwan originally did not believe it and looked at the letter with some disdain. He even thought that this letter would be the evidence of Chun Rochio's provocation. But when he saw the last line of words, his body trembled and he suddenly froze. Song Zaiqing's private place had a small red mole. This was an ironclad fact. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.